a more interactive element of the webinar. I'm going to turn to Yara Ouda. Yara, you represent the youth, might I say, in the area of advocacy, and you've spoken a little bit about the issue of accountability. We're talking about young people. This is all about young people. And majority young people, girls obviously in school, and young women. And you've heard from the panelists who have touched on issues such as child marriage and the kinds of pressures that women and girls face in Africa, the issue of poverty, the lack of education, maybe that their parents and leaders might have. From what perspective do you come from? Give us some of your remarks. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair, and I'm very happy to be here in such a fruitful discussion of people of very high education and practice as well in the area of education and health as well. So I'm going to talk about the African Union Office of the Youth Envoy, and then I'll talk about advocacy. So basically, the Office of the African Union Youth Envoy in her action plan champions gender equality and empowerment of women and girls, as well as advocacy for education and employment of youth and young women. Also, as part of the mandate, the African Union through the Office of the Youth Envoy and as well the African Union Women Gender Development Directorate, they recently launched a feminist blog called Sauti, and this is part of engaging youth, especially women, to write and express themselves in this blog about what do they face, what problems do they face in regards to education, health, empowerment, employment, any issue they'd like to write about, so that the office and the African Union can voice up their needs and also try to find practical solutions in addition to the policies that are found in the African Union. Also, until now, we reached around 25 contributions of young women who amplified their voices on Sauti blog. And they are from different regions of the African continent. Basically, they highlighted that they call for the attention to their needs, and that the state of young women, as well as it's urgent, especially during COVID. Like I believe, and everybody believes, that problems existed since before COVID, but COVID a little bit highlighted more on that these issues are still there, and because of the lockdown, because of the isolation, hence girls became more vulnerable, staying at home, being subjected to domestic violence. There are many dropouts from schools, and health issues that they face in regards to early child marriage, lack of information in regards to sexual reproduction health. So all these things were added through Sauti that we need to reach the grassroots in specific. Also, the AU Youth Envoy, as well, as part of her mandate, advocated for the empowerment of women and girls, inclusion and non-discrimination of women in leadership positions, and in specific, to end female genital mutilation, early child marriage, as they stand as barriers to education, not only COVID, and that their ratio is higher than the COVID ratio of dropouts from schools. In addition, the idea of having a youth envoy, the first youth envoy to the African Union, is to amplify the state of young women and youth in general throughout their different leading networks, so that as we witness that, we always see that all kinds of youth-led organizations or networks or startups are most welcome all the time to join any of the youth envoy engagements, whether online or offline, so that they can also amplify the voices of the disadvantaged ones. And for me, being part or a member of the African Youth Front on coronavirus, I represent as well Gender is My Agenda campaign, which is GMAC, African Women Leaders Network, and the we all the time discuss the uncovered issues that maybe in our countries we are not allowed to discuss it, or in some countries religion sometimes stops as a barrier, culture, norms. Maybe the girls are not able to talk about their issues because of the stigma or the shame of saying that she faced domestic violence or harassment or rape. So we try to talk about all these issues, as also it's basic human rights of a girl or a child to get education, good health, and or her basic needs, as well as including, of course, both genders, because it's very important. Most of us think that when we talk about gender equality and diseases affecting girls or women, that we are only talking about women. Actually, it's men before women. And in our countries, most of the African countries, whether in North Africa, where I come from, or in the other territories, we see that if the man is aware, is well educated, and can guide as well his wife, his sister, his daughter, then this is a step towards having a healthy family. And we can't ignore the fact that we still have the male superiority in some of the countries, and we are not fighting its superiority. We are actually looking after the awareness, the good awareness that the man should be the leader as well behind all women. So this is basically throughout the office, and I don't want to repeat more and more what happened during COVID, because as we know that it caused lots of dropouts from schools, girls before boys, and as well as there's discrimination somehow that took place, especially that not all institutions were well equipped with the technology and tech capacity and learning investment. So it's absolutely, I mean, I don't want to go through this a lot, not to take too much time, but I want to talk about advocacy now.
Yeah.
So actually the role,
I'll give you 1 minute, Yara.
I'll be very fast, I'm sorry. So actually youth play a very important role in advocacy, mentorship, and in talking to their leaders in the grassroots. And actually speaking, accountability starts from us. If I'm accountable, you are accountable, then accountability can go to the member states, and then we can invest in our programs. So creating spaces is very important. Amplifying experiences, best practices, and champion the leaders. I mean, champion the women who are champions of war zones, of early marriage, of any of these of the stories. Champion their stories. Amplifying flagship programs of youth initiatives. Try to invest in them as well. As we said, let them write down their problems in the blog form. Dialogue is very important. I see dialogue in all means is a mean of solving many issues. Engage women in good governance, because they are good governance to their families and good governance to the government as well. As well as it's good time now as well to look after developing skills that suit the market, because the market changed before COVID and after COVID. And as well encourage partnerships and communications, partnerships with the grassroots organizations or startups, and we can also look after the private sector. And finally, I know that you want me to stop. I just want to say that
I can't mute you myself.
Thank you. It's just that education is not only the education system. Education is how valuable we are, our health, our self-satisfaction, our awareness about our mental health. So education is everything in life since we are born until now. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Yara. And that was really useful and helpful and insightful. I mean, some of the things that you touched on, particularly about how COVID has changed the kind of skills that we need to be thinking about for women and girls. I think that's one of the biggest things and issues to emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic. Last but not least, the Honourable Lady there and development partners and those working with authorities across the continent must include the acceleration of women and girls' education in their agenda. Yara, very quickly to you, youth advocacy, excuse me, you spoke about that. What more can youth advocates do, and how do they do it? Is it campaigns? Is it social media? What is it? What more can youth advocates do to advance girls' education, women and girls' education?
Thank you for your question, Chair. So Yeah, before I get into the question, I want to say that also that advocacy should be including the champions, and I don't call women who are in need or at disadvantages that they are victims. They are champions of the situations that they are going through. So we should bring those champions on table. It's not me that I'm going to talk about a woman that is facing war issues, the early child marriage. It's not you, it's not anybody except her. So this is very important before we go into what channels can be advocacy taking place. I believe that advocacy can take place in different aspects. Like before COVID, it was mainly offline. We used to have forums, conferences, for instance, in the African Union, because I used to be a youth volunteer in the African Union for 1 year. So there used to be the African Youth pardon, I forgot its name, forum, yeah, the Pan-African Youth Forum, every year that takes place, and it brings everybody from grassroots to policy making, decision making actors in the African continent. So this was the offline tool. But during COVID, we discovered that it's very hard to go offline, so we need to go online. So the online thing is that we try as much as we can, especially through the African Youth COVID front on COVID, that we make sure that everyone is represented. I mean, from different countries, and at the same time, different coalitions of youth, and we start to let them report around what are they doing in their countries, reaching out to the grassroots, especially community service people. You know, if like I come from Egypt, and I don't necessarily approach everybody in the society, but we can approach the community service in each, I mean, in each street, so that those are the people who know the issues and the problems that their people is passing through, even if it's one street between me and them. But we all live different, even if we come from the same country. So this is how we try to reach people who are most in need, that we collaborate and we partner with them, and also we link them with other partners that can sponsor services to them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, FGM and other practices. This is a good question we have from Folashade Ojo, and I'm going to ask Yara this question. Yara, the question is, with the trend and technology evolution, or let's just say with the technology evolution, how can we incorporate technology to promote quality education for all, especially in poor communities? And of course, this is in light of the fact that COVID-19 has led to global, probably, closure of schools and remote learning and online learning and learning from home and homeschooling. What is the role of technology? COVID-19 has made us think about technology as a device for education, and maybe something we need to think about post-COVID. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thanks for this question. So this question is very tricky, because I know that we all know that technology was there, and there was a huge evolution of technology. We're in the 21st century, so it's not new. However, what happened is that COVID surprised us all, that everything is going tech, everything is going to be online. We can't interact for a couple of months, and I believe even now, after the quarantine is lifted up, we're not yet ready for offline education with the same capacity. So there are many challenges that we're going to face, which is absolutely understood. However, I believe that we are aware of the fact that technology is not reaching everybody. It's mainly in the capital, in the central areas, but we still face problems in reaching technology in other areas. And even in the central areas, not everybody is privileged with the same speed of internet, with devices. So I believe that the private sector plays an important role in this coming period in collaboration with governments, because private sector has a different system of delivering services, and they also have the business modules. So it's very important that the business module of different private sectors start to provide, like for instance, the telecommunication companies start to provide free internet access. I'm not saying cheap, I'm saying free because actually speaking, before COVID, we were talking about free education for the primary sector. So now we're talking about free internet speed and also affordable devices that can be available for the disadvantaged or the marginalized areas. And for everybody, knowing well that it's not only for citizens, for migrants, for refugees, for everybody who cannot access such a service. Working with the community service is very important. So not necessarily, and this is part of the law as well, the law of the civil society, not necessarily that the private sector has to amend a memorandum of understanding or whatever with the government so that they can reach the community service. Synergy should take place easier and faster so that we can pass this period in an easy and flexible way. And this is the time now. We've been calling for this before, but now it's urgent.
Thank you.
I hope I get there.
Thank you very much. We have about a minute and a half left. Sorry, I was on mute there for a second. My question to you, Yara, your final remark, final thought. What is the role of youth advocates like yourself, and what do they need to do?
All right, so I believe that everyone here is an advocate, including me and yourselves. I believe that even if staying at home, having kids or not, you are responsible somehow of your neighbor, of your own mental health, of checking on people, whether online, you don't have to go there. So simply what I want to say is that reach out to others, make it easy. Try to exert any few effort that you can do so that you can make sure that 10% of people around you are good. And tell them, please, could you please ask about somebody who's close to you, so you'll find 20%, 30%, and so on and so forth. So this is simply what we can do now. And I'd like also, because it's very important that we all visit the African Union Youth Envoy website and get engaged, because this is the channel that we can link the high level with the lower level. This is very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yara. I really appreciate that contribution. Last but definitely not least, I want to give the final closing remark to the Executive Director for CIFF, Faustina Fin-Yame. Your final thoughts. We've had this webinar. I mean, there is a lot to take in and a lot to be done. How would you chart the way forward from here?
Okay, so I mean, I agree with all of our panelists, you know, some great contributions there, but I call upon all African governments to make women and girls as their game changer for their post-COVID or part of their development plan and their economic plan. Without that, this becomes a real fruitless, you know, exercise. They have to put women as part of their development agenda, every single African government. And behind that,